Okay, for my next review, I'm looking at another biointeractive evolution lab, this time on anole lizards in the Caribbean. This is probably my favorite lab I've seen so far. I think it's extensive and also interesting, but perhaps it's just because it's the stuff that I like. But what it does is it gives the students a chance to look at lizard evolution. So there's several different things that we can work with here. We're going to jump to the phylogeny tab, which is one of the 4 different modules that you can work with. I like this one because it really does a good job of talking about how they might be related. There are other tabs here. There's one where we can classify them based on morphological characteristics and niches. There's another where we can start looking at data. And then finally one where we actually look at the colors of their dewlaps. We're going to focus on the phylogeny one, and I think it's a good example, but it moves us into the other ones as well. So here we start. We'll play a video. It gives you the problem that they're trying to address.
On each of the Caribbean's 4 largest islands, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Cuba, and Hispaniola, we find the same distribution of similar-looking lizards. Each island has slender grass bush anoles with long tails, long-legged trunk ground anoles, short-legged twig anoles, and canopy anoles with large toe pads. Did each body type evolve once and then spread to the other islands? Or did each type evolve independently on each island?
So this is really neat to me. It poses a really good question and then talks about how you might go about finding it. And so we'll go forward. And so here it actually gives us the DNA sequences of several of these different organisms. Mitochondrial DNA doesn't really explain why it's mitochondrial DNA, but it does give you that. So it gives you mitochondrial DNA and then goes from there. What you can do is it'll do it for you, but you can also actually take this and put it into this other website, this phylogeny website here, and I'll show you how it works. It's kind of neat. You can take all of this DNA and copy it out of here, and then you can go into this other website, and from here you can actually paste in your different genetic traits, and then once you've done that, you can submit your results, and it runs through the process, and it's going to give us a cladogram that shows us what the results are based on characteristics. And so I'll jump ahead to the solution once it gets there. And here it is. It shows us the different amounts of similarities between these. So we start to get an idea of a phylogenetic relationship between these different types of lizards. Again, I like that it's taken from one site to another. I think that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. It has them jumping around using different resources. And from here, so heading back into the Lizard Evolution Lab site, from here it proposes a similar phylogeny. It's exactly the same one since it gave us the data, but it gives us this and asks us to compare it to the results that we had. Then it talks a little bit about how these trees work and gives us a couple quizzes. There are quizzes throughout the entire tutorial. This says that they're all more closely related to one another, which is of course true. And there's our sort of root of the tree, a different lizard. And this is false. The Occultulus is not that closely related to Evermanni, and so we'll click that, and it's just, can you actually read it? What I think is neat here is then it goes and asks us to take these little characteristics and drag them to the right spot. So I'll do this, and I'll jump ahead once I've succeeded at it. So we'll just color the things the correct colors. Okay, and I think we have them colored right. So these are them colored based on their characteristics. And so it looks like from the outset that those with similar characteristics are not closely related, which poses that perhaps they got to the islands and then evolved separately in the different islands, which So again, based on this phylogeny, does it look like they're close related? No, they don't. And so we're going to go on from there. Here we drag the island colors. And when we drag the island colors, we see that organisms are most closely related in general to those on the same island, proposing that there are multiple evolutionary events once they got to the individual islands. So we can draw this conclusion and go on from here. Again, good stuff. So yeah, they're more closely related to ones from similar islands. And then it asks us some quiz questions to double check our understanding. This is one of several modules, like I said. The other ones here, this data analysis one is fantastic. You actually can go through and measure these lizards on an island and then an experimental island where they're trying to drive evolution. Here, I'll start the beginning of it here. So in the Bahamas, some researchers took some lizards from a tiny little spot called iron clay where there were lizards and big trees, and they took them from there and placed them on several smaller islets just outside of there and watched their evolution. And there's a whole video where it talks about what they did, but on iron clay you have big shrubs, on these other islands you have smaller shrubs, and this video explains how they collect their data, where they take each lizard, they tape it down, they x-ray it, and then they use the x-rays to measure several characteristics. What the lab lets you do is go through and actually measure x-rays of these lizards yourself. So you draw little lines here to measure the hind limb length of the different lizards. So there's that, and we say record the measurement, and it drops the hind limb length in, and then we go here and we go snout to vent, and we record the measure, and we get the length of the animal itself. And so you can do that. You do this for 10 lizards on the iron clay and then 10 on one of the experimental islands. Then it invites you to take that data and do some data analysis, and it walks you through it. I'll pull up what I have here. So here's my data analysis in Excel. After I went through, I did this data analysis, and then it asks you, based on this, does it look like you're seeing two different populations in terms of ratios of leg length to body length? And it does look like there's selective pressure driving the leg length down relative to the body length on the experimental islands. And the students can go through and find this whole process. So I think it's great. The math isn't too hard, but it's not too easy. It's Goldilocks for me. I'm really happy with it, and I think it does a good job. The other tutorials, you could also look on the DoLab colors and see how they evolve. This to me is exactly what a virtual lab can be. I'm going to use it. I think it's in a distance learning environment. It's perfect because they get to experiment. It's a little bit repetitive as you draw the measurements for all of them, but it's not excessive. I think it's great, and I really like this lab. So